4 deep up in the Malibu. I slide through where they slide through and serve beef like a drive-through. My crew brings Christ to the alley. I'm a Cali fool, feed him the rock, call it the alley-oop. Yeah, Brody, you shanking where I bring the word. Gunshots, holding prayer circles where they stain the curb. We make disciples where they're toting Glocks, cause it's funkier than Dolphin socks. The block's hotter than some old steam pots. They rock product till the whole thing drops, chopping and hit the block from old green knots. God's the Father and before.
Welcome everybody to another edition of the Brody File. We're on the road. What a shock, the Brody File on the road during election season. We are, did you guess it? Can we get a better shot of it? Here, we'll show. The St. Louis Arch. This ain't no McDonald's. McDonald's arches have nothing compared to this arch. And by the way, speaking of the St. Louis Arch, which is huge in stature, Donald Trump has an arch-like climb if he is going to win on election day. Of course, we all know about those Trump tapes. Don't worry, we're not playing them here at the Brody File. You can Google it. In the meantime, debate night here in St. Louis. Oh, what a night. The tone was set early on when Clinton and Trump wouldn't even shake hands. It also didn't take long for the much talked about video of Trump's lewd comments to come up.
This was locker room talk. I'm not proud of it. I apologize to my family. I apologize to the American people.
He has said that the video doesn't represent who he is, but I think it's clear to anyone who heard it that it represents exactly who he is.
From that point, though, Trump went on the offensive, bringing up her husband's past immoral conduct.
And there's never been anybody in the history of politics in this nation that's been so abusive to women. So you can say any way you want to say it, but Bill Clinton was abusive to women. Hillary Clinton attacked those same women and attacked them viciously.
Just before the debate, Trump held a press conference with 4 women who say Bill Clinton abused them. He also invited them to the debate. But Trump wasn't done, moving on to other subjects like those infamous deleted emails.
If I win, I am going to instruct my attorney general to get a special prosecutor to look into your situation, because there has never been so many lies, so much deception.
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Yeah, because you'd be in jail.
Secretary Clinton.
Clinton played defense on new email leaks revealing that during those paid Wall Street speeches, she talked of needing both a public and private position on certain issues, leaving her open to being two-faced.
As I recall, that was something I said about Abraham Lincoln after having seen the wonderful Steven Spielberg movie called Lincoln.
Now she's blaming the lie on the late, great Abraham Lincoln. That's one that I haven't. Okay, Honest Abe never lied. That's the good thing. That's the big difference between Abraham Lincoln and you.
Along with the zingers, Trump had some missteps, like admitting he hasn't paid individual federal income taxes for years.
Did you use that $916 million loss to avoid paying personal federal income taxes for
Of course I do. Of course I do. And so do all of her donors, or most of her donors.
He also admitted he and running mate Mike Pence don't see eye to eye on foreign policy in Syria.
He and I haven't spoken, and I disagree.
Clinton didn't make any major mistakes. Instead, this debate came down mostly to insults.
Secretary Clinton, does Mr. Trump have the discipline to be a good leader?
No.
I'm shocked to hear that.
Well, it's not only my opinion, it's the opinion of many others. National security experts, Republicans, former Republican members of Congress.
Meanwhile, Trump got personal when talking about Clinton's recent comments that half of his supporters were a basket of deplorables.
She has tremendous hate in her heart. And when she said deplorables, she meant it. And when she said irredeemable, they're irredeemable. You didn't mention that. But when she said they're irredeemable, to me, that might have been even worse.
The only thing worse may have been a presidential debate that hit a new low in American history. Of course, that was the debate. So what did I think about it? Well, I have an idea. Why don't we go to my analysis on the 700 Club the day after? Have a look.
David, you talked to the Trump team. Did they say anything about the preparation for this last debate?
They did, Pat. As a matter of fact, talking to some campaign sources this morning saying that they believe what Donald Trump turned in last night was a textbook performance, and that's a quote. And they also say that he prepared much harder this time. That was the word they used, harder this time. And clearly it paid off. I mean, I don't think there's any question that Donald Trump did very well in that debate. You know, one of the things I noticed, Pat, is that if you notice in Hempstead, New York, in that first debate, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, he was just fine, pretty much focused, and then, I don't know, lost interest, couldn't keep it going, couldn't keep the momentum going. Last night, a whole different story. 90 minutes, start to finish, laser focused on Hillary Clinton. And, you know, one of those campaign sources telling me this morning that they came prepared for combat and not a conversation, because they acknowledged that the last debate, Hillary Clinton did well because she was in a combative mood. This time, they said Donald Trump was going to come ready to fight.
What is your take? It looks like she was kind of passive on this thing, because actually the moderators were asking questions, and the audience was asking questions that aimed at her that were pretty tough.
Well, and we saw Donald Trump go after the moderators quite a bit during the debate, even at one point saying, hey, it's 1 on 3 out here, which I thought was a pretty interesting line and got a kind of a chuckle from the audience. Look, I think one of the big concerns that Hillary Clinton's going to have going forward is this idea that she's mailing it in and letting Trump be Trump. And, you know, there's a lot of folks in the Hillary Clinton campaign that want to just stand by the wayside, if you will, and just watch Donald Trump implode. The problem with that is that you can turn in what happened last night by Hillary Clinton, which is a pedestrian performance. She pretty much let Trump have his way for the most part, didn't really push back as hard as many of her supporters wanted to, and that's what happens when you get complacent. So if she's going to continue that for the next 30 days, we may be in for a much, much different race, and those polls will most likely tighten quite a bit, because my understanding through some sources close to the Trump campaign is that this is going to be scorched earth for the next 30 days. It will be combat, Pat. I don't think there's any question about it.
David, you know, I head up a university, and we try to teach people the fine points of logic and reasoning. It doesn't look like there's much logic in reasoning. For example, there were questions asked to Donald Trump, and everybody said, okay, he won. But they asked him about taxes. He didn't really hit it very hard. They asked him about the Affordable Care Act, and he could have knocked out of the park, and he didn't do it. They asked about the emails, and he talked about all of them, but there was nothing in depth. At least that was my feeling. Did you have that feeling or not?
I really did. I actually, the same thoughts were going through my mind as well. And look, as the campaign will say, they didn't necessarily come. They wanted to lay out the vision. And if you notice at the beginning, he being Donald Trump, talked about making America great again. He didn't say that in the first debate until 90 minutes in. He said it 3 times in the first 10 minutes or so of that debate. So he was more focused on the overall message. But right, when it came to substance, you know, I thought the Obamacare or the Affordable Health Care Act and what he was going to do to replace it, I mean, it was a lot of mumbo jumbo. He didn't really quite have it all down. He talked about state lines and, you know, but it's something he's been saying for a while, but no real meat on the bone there. And I think that was an issue. And he had a couple other missteps as well, obviously talking about how he disagrees with his vice presidential running mate, Mike Pence, on policy in Syria. Though I will say that is authentically Donald Trump. You'll never hear a politician say, hey, you know what, I disagree with my running mate. That's a polished politician will never say that. Donald Trump, not a polished politician. He'll say just about anything, as we're learning, Pat.
You know, if he wanted to set up the Senate, though, there wasn't one single Republican who voted for the Affordable Care Act, not one. And the thing is a disaster. The premiums are going up through the roof. The deductibles are going up double. People are terribly upset. The insurance companies are exiting the program by the hundreds. It is a complete meltdown and will be collapsed in about another 6 or 8 months. But why didn't he bring that out? It looks like to me, I mean, he wanted to help his buddies in the Senate. That would be one way to do it.
Yeah, I think for the most part, look, Donald Trump is not going to win this debate or, quite frankly, the presidency talking about going 2, 3, 4 paragraphs deep into substance. You know, he's always talked about leverage. He's always talked about this idea that he wanted to make sure that, you know, he has not just maximum leverage, but the willingness to negotiate a lot of this. And so the reality is that for people that are going to vote for Donald Trump, they're going to have to take a leap of faith, and it is a leap of faith to know that he'll have have the right advisors around him that know policy. Remember, we talked to David Barton, CEO of Wall Builders, a conservative Christian leader who said Donald Trump is going to run a CEO model type of government. He's not going to run your typical government as we've seen presidents do in the past. He's a CEO who delegates public policy positions, if you will, this time, to certain folks around him. And then he says, okay, boys, go do and ladies, go do your job.
All right, what is the plan of attack for the next 30 days?
Combat, combat, combat. I think they realize that they're in an all-out fight, and they've got to do something. And look, it is far past time. The train left the station a long time ago with Donald Trump trying to appeal to the squishy middle here in America. The folks that, want to see a more presidential, a more temperate, a more calm Donald Trump. Look, he is who he is. And he is Donald Trump, and he is a brash street brawler from New York. We saw it last night. That's not going to change in 30 days. And get ready for Las Vegas in 10 days, because boy, oh boy, what happens in Vegas sure is not going to stay in Vegas. It's going to be all around the world. David Brody with some fine analysis here on the Brody File. That is narcissism to the 10th, 9th, 11th, whatever degree. Hey, spin room after the debate, a big night, of course, when everybody comes out and spins it left and right. Here's a sampling of that.
I think he wanted to drag her into the gutter with him. He wanted a brawl, and she was going to remain above the fray. When they go low, we go high. And he couldn't have gone any lower than he did tonight before the debate began.
What was the low point? The jail comment?
I think the stunt he pulled right before the debate began.
Dr. Carson, what do you say to your evangelical the supporters who carried you through for so long, who are now uncomfortable with some of the remarks?
Well, I'm uncomfortable with them too. Everybody's uncomfortable with them. But you have to be able to look at the big picture. If you're talking to evangelicals, you have to say which candidate is pro-life and is trying to save babies, and which candidate is okay with tearing babies' heads off when they're fully formed and could survive outside the womb. You have to ask yourself which candidate believes in traditional biblical values in terms of marriage, and which candidate wants to change definitions and then force everybody else to comply with their change. These kinds of things, I think, should be pretty clear to people who are biblically based.
John, what do you think of some of the lines tonight that Trump had about the jail line, obviously, which is more than just a line? I mean, he went somewhere where no one else has gone.
Yeah, and he went again over the top and did something that maybe we'll get some headlines, but I think he fortunately doesn't control the justice system in the United States, and he never will, because a presidential candidate going that far, threatening in that way, is just inappropriate, improper, and particularly in light of the fact that the Republican FBI director reviewed the case and said no reasonable prosecutor would take a case forward and so for him to say that tonight was, I think, an abuse of his candidacy. And obviously, if he was in office, it would be an abuse of power. But fortunately, he'll never be in that office, so we won't have to watch him pervert justice in this country.
All right, enough with Trump and the tapes and all that. Look, there'll be plenty to discuss in the weeks forward. But coming next, Mike Pence, one-on-one. That's right, we're in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. The story when we come back. And welcome back, everybody, to St. Louis, Missouri, the St. Louis Arch. It's historic. You gotta love it. The gateway to the West, right? Is that it? Gateway to the... I'll look it up. Hey, look, Mike Pence. We had a chance to sit down with him one-on-one. Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Conservative Christians love him. Why? Because first he's a Christian, then he's a conservative, and then he's a Republican. Take a look at some of our chat here on the Brody File. In this crucial battleground state of Pennsylvania, Mike Pence makes his best pitch.
America needs to be strong. And when Donald Trump becomes president of the United States, we will lead with American strength on the world stage once again.
With a month before Election Day, Mike Pence and the Trump campaign have some hard work ahead of them. Pence tells CBN News that they're not just fighting against the Clinton-Kaine ticket. Do you believe that the media, the mainstream media in this country, wants Hillary Clinton as the next president of the United States?
I got to tell you, David, it's been amazing to me. I've always been aware of liberal media bias in the course of my career, but I have to tell you, since I joined this campaign, it's like 2 on 1 every day, with the mainstream national media doing half of Hillary Clinton's work for her every day.
So Pence says they will need to work harder and go straight to the voters, especially in blue states like Pennsylvania, where they might change some minds.
I think Trump has good intentions, but sometimes it gets misconstrued in the back and forth. But Pence was very good at laying out more of a vision and what the intentions are behind the rhetoric. So I think, yes, in some ways, I do believe that. He helps to calm the voters that aren't quite as easy.
Between now and November 8th, you're going to see Mike Pence at a lot of these rallies, like right here in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. There are a high number of white, blue-collar voters, and those are exactly the voters that Donald Trump and Mike Pence need to show up on Election Day. And they work to convince evangelicals that Trump can be trusted on issues important to them.
When it comes to issues like the sanctity of life, I couldn't be more proud to be standing with Donald Trump, the pro-life candidate for president of the United States in this race.
He would be a pro-life president.
I can assure you we have talked, I have heard him in public, I have heard him in private. Donald Trump is committed to the sanctity of life.
Another concern is whether conservative evangelicals will show up on Election Day. He has some biblical advice for the flock.
And I truly do believe that part of how we submit to the authorities that are over us in that biblical admonition is for us to participate, to be informed. However you vote is your choice.
Whatever the outcome, Pence believes the country needs a spiritual jolt.
It's an important time for us to pray. And I believe what's always been true is still true today, that if his people who are called by his name will humble themselves and pray, that he'll again hear from heaven and he'll heal our land.
Mike Pence, we are going to hear from him a little bit later in the show. Back from St. Louis in a moment. And welcome back, everybody, to St. Louis, Missouri, St. Louis Arch behind us. Hey, look, a lot of evangelicals love Donald Trump still, despite the Trump tapes. I know it's controversial, but look, we had to check in with the church lady, Tracy Winborn, who has an especially interesting story when it comes to an evangelical perspective on Donald Trump.
Well, David, evangelicals seem more divided than ever over Donald Trump, especially after his so-called locker room talk. Now, that's not the case for these fanatic supporters at a rally near Pittsburgh just one day after the last presidential debate. While we may not see chanting like this inside church walls, one Trump supporter from a small Texas town actually wrote a song in Trump's honor. Liz Brown of Springtown sat down at a piano last month. She had asked the Lord to put a song in her heart, and with the advice of her husband, she wrote the song in Southern gospel style. Liz recorded the song at the First Baptist Church with her friend Leah Lacey singing. And the title of the song? Make America Great Again. Lord, make America great again, and fill our land with skills you give to men, for love of country and humanity. Lord, make America great again. That is the Make America Great Again song. Liz told me the Lord gave her this song because she believes Trump has been chosen for such a time as this.
It's just a prayer to the Lord, and I hope that it will be an uplifting song, not only to Donald Trump, but to the body of Christ.
Liz says she also wants Trump to know that people in Springtown love him and are praying for him. And if anyone else has a song or story to share for the faith community, tweet me at Tracy Winborn. Church Lady out. David, back to you.
Thank you, Tracy. We are back from St. Louis in a moment. And welcome back, everybody, to St. Louis, Missouri, the St. Louis Arch behind me. It's a kind of a cool thing. It's kind of big, but, you know, it's nice. Anyhow, Mike Pence, we heard from him earlier in the show. Now, part 2 of our conversation with Mike Pence along the Mike Pence campaign bus. All right, it's like a cruise ship in here. It's a cruise ship.
Hey, welcome.
I just want to ask you, just tell me.
It's like a cruise ship.
It is. I felt like I was going to the
gotta
ballroom.
come all the way back.
Oh, you're going to show me? This is the closed confines of it. Now, look at this. Where do you do your? Should I ask where you do your thinking? Maybe I should. Is this where? This is the nerve center.
It is a little bit. This is just our second day on the bus, though. So we've just settled in a little bit, and I just love it. We're just going to work our hearts out every day for the next 33 days to help the American people elect Donald Trump as the next president of the United States.
You're a straight shooter. What's the campaign diet? Caffeine. I know caffeine. What else? What's going on in the Mike Pence diet here on the road?
Well, I'll tell you what. It's usually it's eggs and bacon in the morning.
That's good.
And I try and stay on the salad situation, although McDonald's was dinner last night.
Right.
And if there's a quarter pounder in my vicinity, it usually doesn't last very long.
Very nice. And my last question, motorcycles. You missing it? You getting on the motorcycle? What's the situation? You going through withdrawal?
I am a little bit. I always talk to the troopers who ended up providing us with some escorts, because I love to ride the Harley Davidson. I started the governor's ride again this summer and rode for a little while.
Yeah.
But I don't know between now and Election Day if I'll be back on the bike, but I will shortly thereafter.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Dave.
Mike Pence talking motorcycles, talking food. We like when he talks food here on the Brody File. Back in a moment. Welcome back, everybody, to the Brody File. Hey, before we leave you, look, we got to tell you that we're everywhere. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat. All right, well, maybe we're not all the time on Snapchat, because that's for 14 and 15-year-olds, right? And we're not 14 or 15, though. I will say that from a mental standpoint, sometimes after this campaign, we feel like we're about 14, actually a lot younger than that. Look, that does it from us here in St. Louis. Who knows where we're going to be next week? I don't know. I'll look at the campaign schedule. Until then, God bless. Have a great week.